As you learn about the narcissistic pattern, it's also wise to reflect on the much healthier alternatives. Now, below you're going to find a link to my new extensive course called Ready, Set, Connect. It addresses both the mindset and the skills involved in gratifying relationships, and I hope you'll find it to be quite therapeutic. Let's begin with a certain assumption, and that is I hope that you're trying to apply some good reasoning and thought and logic to the ways that you engage and interact with other individuals. And as you interact with those narcissistic people, you want to try to have reason and logic leading the way there, and yet you keep getting this blowback from them where they cannot be reasoned with, they want to control you, they have lots of manipulations, and they are ridiculously defensive. And then you can start asking the question, exactly how deliberate are these narcissistic individuals in their manner of life? Especially when strains and tensions come along. Do they know specifically how off base or how inappropriate they are? Or is their way of life so driven by forces beyond their awareness that they just can't stop themselves? It's kind of like they're so on automatic pilot that they just keep doing it, and they just don't know how to regain some semblance of control in a healthy kind of way. Now, there's no fixed black and white answer to those kind of questions, but I think it's safe for us to say that much of the narcissistic pattern of life is indeed driven by unconscious forces. Yes, as adults, these individuals do have choices. Presumably, they know the difference between right and wrong, and you'd like to think, well, do they understand that they're choosing wrong? Their sense of logic is so impacted by a lot of unfinished strain and tension that as they enter into their adult years, what you as a normal or a healthy or a growing person would assume is not something that they can access. They simply don't have good self-reflection skills. Now, in order to understand how the unconscious mind works, I want to focus on three different terms that we use in psychology. One is the term suppression. Another is the term repression, and another is the term arrested development. When we talk about suppressing your emotions or your perceptions, this can be a very conscious kind of thing. How many times have you been engaged with somebody and you thought, I don't want to get into it, I'm not going to talk about it. You may have some frustrations or tensions, and you think, I think I'd be better off just not getting in, not speaking into it. So you suppress it, you hold it in, you kind of know it's there. It's like there's nothing good that's going to come from me bringing it out into the open. Repression, though, is something that's much more fundamentally powerful than suppression. When you have a pattern of repressing your emotions or your perceptions, this is a very, very strong defense mechanism that people use when and it begins very early in life, when they have very painful or unacceptable or confusing experiences. And those experiences are so powerful that their defenses cause them to drive their emotional reactions out of their conscious arena. And this is extremely common with individuals who have narcissistic characteristics. Now, sometimes we have a natural inborn tendency towards control and stubbornness and all. Some people are more inclined that way toward others. But many times we can have such reminders during those developmental years that it's not okay to display your humanness. It's not okay to come against someone who might be in a position of authority, or there are experiences or disasters or pain or calamities have come into your life, and you're so young, it's like, I don't know what to do with it. And so your psychological self develops such a thick and defensive shield around oneself that literally as you grow and age, you don't even really know what's going on except that you're feeling uncomfortable. And so you look for ways to compensate. But that's repression. Now, Beyond suppression and then beyond repression, then we can zero in on the term arrested development. And basically what we're saying is when a person is in arrested development, they have both suppressed and especially repressed their memories of painful circumstances where they don't grow emotionally or relationally. Their capacity to mature, their capacity to get into deeper understanding and logic and reasoning is stunted. And as a result, they don't adjust, they don't blend, they remain in a childish state. And I know that many of you will shake your head and say, oh yeah, I've tried to talk with that 48-year-old person who's highly narcissistic, and I feel like I'm dealing with a 6-year-old kid that's throwing a temper tantrum, or that person won't even talk to me when we're mad because they just go into shutdown mode. Basically, narcissists had such early on experiences of confusion with respect with what to do about their emotions and perceptions, and they learned to hide it, and they learned to recharge or redirect their energies in other directions, that they no longer know how to address or even recognize what's driving them from the inside out. Their defenses have become impenetrable, and the result is that they do indeed operate with a type of automatic pilot in charge. And that's why they tend to go into high control mode. They tend to compensate with their confusions with other individuals by trying to maintain an attitude of superiority over others. They're unable to tune into others' feelings because it's like, no, tuning in is not something that I learned, and it doesn't get me very well. They concoct their own alternate reality. It's important for you to remember that so much of this repression and the arrested development that goes along with it began at an early age in their life when their reasoning was so shallow and they were just so incapable, and they never did get out of that childish sense of reasoning. They can age and physically, and their functionality on certain skill sets can grow, and they can be quite good there. But they remain in childish ways. They remain as raw reactors, which is what little children do, and intuitive thinking and insightful questions are just something they don't want to have to deal with. For example, when you have that anger, when you have that worry, or when you have that insecurity, healthy individuals will say, let's talk about that. Why do I feel this way? And what's the root of this? And how is it that I might be transferring my experiences from this person over into this individual, and I'm doing some displacement? What's going on there? Narcissists can't go into that space. They're just raw reactors. They fear collaboration because early on they began to draw the conclusion, I can't trust. I can't be open. I can't be vulnerable. That's going to get me in a lot of trouble. And so they bring that into the adult years. But again, true to the nature of repression, it's like they don't even access where the beginning point of that is. And then interestingly, because of their own immature behaviors, other people are going to respond to them with frustration. And so these people who are in arrested development will say, see, look how inappropriate those other people are. And they don't even realize, well, maybe they contributed to that and maybe they're setting the stage for it. It's outside of their realm of consciousness. That being said, this explains why they do indeed remain childishly committed to inappropriate anger, like little kids that throw temper tantrums and they don't have a monitor on themselves. They're very prone towards blame shifting. The world has done me wrong, and that in their childishness, maybe there was some truth to that, but now they just generalize that to anybody and everybody. They're stuck inside a victim's complex, and when I say stuck, I mean in a major kind of way. They're emotionally needy because their needs were not addressed well and serviced well as children, and yet they're not emotionally prepared as adults to go into the give and take that would allow them to compensate for some of the needs that were not earlier addressed. They don't understand what love and respect is because they didn't receive that in a seminal kind of way. They're too fragile to say, I was wrong. I need to change. They base their quality of life on right externals, as opposed to well-developed internals. In other words, they haven't really learned how to apply emotional competence. That just simply wasn't established. So we still go back to that question, well, do they choose to be this way? And we can say, well, at some point, somebody will say, well, let's see, you have goodness and you have deviousness. You have respect, you have disrespect. Which would you choose? Well, they know the right answers to those questions, but they're so into the blame shifting. They're so unaware of their own hidden inner drivers that they can come up with correct answers and then they blame it on whoever happens to be in front of them. That's what we mean when we say that there's an unconscious element that's there and they remain stuck. Wouldn't it be nice if we could sit down with that narcissistic person that you engage with and say, hey, look, we've got some adjustments that need to be made. And if that person would come back and say, I'd like that. I know that there are times when I respond poorly and I frustrate you, I frustrate myself. Let's do it. Let's go inside and let's take a hard look, and I look forward to the growth that's going to result. You ever tried that with a narcissist? It'd be nice if they could come up with that excuse, but their repression, their arrested development is so in charge that they're not able to do that. They are unable to access their own humanity because they have been so tainted by shaming and a lack of trust, a lack of proper emotional competence built into it, that's just a space that they're not able to go into. There's a psychological math that they operate with, and that is very low self-reflection equals very high accusation. It's all about the people in front of them. They can't go inside because it's too scary to them, and it's something that they have so shut off that they can't go into that space. You see, the problem that we have is these individuals are unable to fix what they're too ashamed to see or examine. And that being the case, the more you realize that and what you're up against, I'm hoping you can decide, well, if you're in arrested development, if there's subconscious drivers that are pushing you, I'm not going to get pulled into you being the one who sets my pace. That's a formula for disaster. And I hope that discussions like this can give you some good awareness of what you might be dealing with. If you've not already hit that subscribe button, I would encourage you to do so. Hit the like button and the notification bell, all the rest that goes with it. We'll keep more videos coming your direction. If you have a need for therapy, and many of you know that I've been sponsored for years now by the people at BetterHelp.com. There's a link below that will take you to their website. There's a whole team of licensed professional therapists that you can select from. Just a few things that you have to fill out to get there, and then you can make your selection. Please seek the help that you could use and deserve. It's affordable, it's accessible, and I've had good feedback there. Likewise, I have my therapeutic courses. It's like signing up for an online class. It's very extensive, good work on your part if you're into that kind of thing. We have 3 different courses. They each have multiple videos, written documents, guided questions. We have Ready, Set, Connect about making good connections. This is me about your boundaries, free to be finding yourself despite those controllers. We also have my webinars that have already been presented, but you can continue to purchase those, as well as my podcast, our website with many articles, my books, lots of resources for you. Here you are, you're trying to bring a conscious awareness of the fact that when you have your humanity, we all have a need to grow and adjust. And you're wanting to bring that kind of thinking to a narcissist who has so many unconscious elements that they just simply cannot access because of who knows what from their background. Be aware of that. Don't let them establish your pace. I have a certain pity for that. I'm sorry that they're in that place, but consciously, I know who I want to be. I want to be a person of dignity, respect, and civility. And in doing so, you can seek peace that unfortunately may not be accessible to that narcissist. But I'm hoping you can indeed find your peace.